A very good morning to you from Valencia. It's the final round of the FIM CEV Repsol in 2018. We're here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo for the last stop then on the calendar. You can see the weather here compared to MotoGP last weekend has been far, far better, and we are ready for the final day of racing action over the course of this season. You can see that Moto3 Junior World Championship is up first. 18 laps for these riders at this anti-clockwise circuit. We've got 9 left corners and then 5 that are right. It is going to be very, very exciting to see how these riders will fare. Now, a bit of news for you before we get this underway, in that the Moto3 Junior World Championship has already been decided. That is because Raul Fernandez went into this weekend with a 49-point advantage over his nearest title rival, Manuel Pagliani. Pagliani, in turn, is not racing here this weekend due to personal reasons, so as such, after qualifying, Raul Fernandez was declared as the 2018 Moto3 Junior World Champion. So no pressure on the racers today, just a race of a bit of fun here this morning, and then another one coming up later on this afternoon. My name's Tom Brooks, alongside me for the final time in 2018, Fran Wild. Fran, great to have you back in the commentary box, and I can't tell you how much we're excited to get this last one underway.
Absolutely, it's great to be here. I like the way you said that, as though I've been the one off doing Superbike instead of a few rounds this season, but no, it's great to be here, and yeah, it's a little bit less of a day of pressure than we were expecting maybe a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, we have no Pagliani and therefore we already have a champion. But, you know, that can bring its own thrills, because now they can all just full gas and have a final contest of the season. Yeah,
this will be interesting to see how these riders will fare. This man here is the rider who's on pole position. It's Yuki Kunii for the Asia Talent team. It's the first time that he has qualified on pole position so far this season. Here he is out doing his sighting lap on the circuit. And, well, it's an interesting qualifying session actually for the Asia Talent team, because they've got 2 riders on the front row there, Fran. Yuki Kunii in first position, Ai Ogura on the outside of that front row in 3rd position.
Yeah, I think definitely as a team, they're in the strongest position going into the races today. And yeah, both have had great form, both are now race winners as well. So I think they now know they can get the job done, and good qualifying is always the best way to set up for a Super Sunday. So I imagine they'll be feeling pretty confident, and probably a little fewer nerves for those guys than the first few times they found themselves in this situation. So that should be an interesting one, I think, definitely that front row.
Riders making their way then onto the grid, slotting themselves into the their grid positions for the penultimate time here today. As we said, 2 races for the Moto3 Junior World Championship, 1 here to start the day and then 1 to end the day. It is going to be interesting to see how they will all fare. In the middle of the front row, it's Makar Yurchenko. Yurchenko, of course, having lost his Moto3 World Championship ride earlier on this season, back in the FIM CEV Repsol. Here qualified 2nd on the grid with the Laglisse Academy team on board that Husqvarna. Great performance also from the Russian.
Yeah, definitely super impressive performance from him as well, to be on that front row, splitting those 2 Asia Talent team bikes. And yeah, had a pretty successful wildcard appearance in the World Championship as well. And now I think we're going to get an on-board lap of this lovely and much sunnier Circuit Ricardo Tormo.
Yeah, the infamous on-board lap here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. We can see here with Yari Salim just coming down towards this first corner. It's a very hard braking zone, this one, because you go down in towards turn 1 here, and it looks a lot tighter than it is, but you can carry a fair amount of speed through there, sometimes a bit too much, like Alex Toledo in front, running a little bit wide. Down towards turn 2, this is a very opportune passing place, and if you saw the Moto2 World Championship race here last weekend, option for some drama on that first lap there as well.
You don't say. Absolutely high drama for the Moto2 guys there. So it's actually quite good when we get these onboard laps. Not only do we see the line from onboard, but also with those riders ahead, you can also see it from a different perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just going through the right-hander of turn 5 into the left of turn 6. This is Ángel Nieto corner. And then we go on to a very short straight, but there's a fast left-hand kink through here as well. And I saw this on-board lap yesterday, and we'll see this evidence now with Yari Salim, is just how close he's able to get with the riders. Flicking it left into this corner here, hard on the brakes, down in towards turn number 8. A good overtaking opportunity through here, but also very easy to lose that front end going through that corner as well.
Yeah, you can see those guys ahead look to be having a pretty interesting duel as well through there. And you can see, I think there's still a few damp patches maybe on the track for this lap, but definitely none of that this morning. And getting into the final part of the lap now. and tucking back in as we had a little bit of a straight, not too much. At Valencia, there's not really anything that's too much of a straight. And yeah, coming around the final section there, where you get closer to the crowd again. Incredible view from every seat here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. You can pretty much see the entire track.
Yeah, absolutely. Down in towards this final corner. This, of course, was where we've seen some loads of overtaking opportunities in years gone by. Some battles to the line as well, and onto that start-finish straight to complete the lap here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. That was Jerry Salim's on board yesterday, the number 31. Let's see how he is going to fare on board that Honda machine. You can see the riders there on the grid. This is Yuki Kunii, your pole man here. A little bit of a special helmet design there for Kunii as well. And as Fran said, race winner. We've had 5 different winners over the course of this 2018 season. Yuki Kunii, of course, having won back in race 1 in Jerez.
Yeah, so you can see that on the graphic on the side of your screen there, that win in Jerez. It did come courtesy of a little drama, but you have to be in it to win it, and that's exactly what happened with his compatriot and teammate last season, Ai Ogura, at the very same place at Jerez, that final corner. Definitely one that deserves the word infamous as well. So, yeah, but it's great for Kunii, obviously. You know, you've got to be, like I say, you've got to stay on the track and avoid that drama and make sure you're not in a position where that will happen to you. So it was a great job from the Japanese rider, and really broke that duck. And here we have Makar Yurchenko, the Kazakhstani rider, 20 years old, so not one of the youngest on this grid, but got some good experience now, and definitely using that in qualifying to take that second place on the grid. Yeah,
Makar Yurchenko, as you said there, Fran, 20 years of age, mixture of Kazakhstan and Russian, races under a Kazakhstan license, but also has a Russian background with his family here as well. You can see there Raul Fernandez's fan club. They're in, of course, with the championship T-shirts now as well, with Fernandez having been crowned the world champion following qualifying yesterday. He'll be hoping to go out with a strong result this year in light of what's going to be a potentially very exciting 2019 campaign for him.
Yeah, definitely. He's been very, very impressive on his wildcard appearances in the Moto3 World Championship. Also was a replacement rider a little bit this season, and always had some really solid pace, and did the championship interview with him yesterday, and he was saying he really hopes that that shows already that he can go there and be competitive from the off next season, where he moves up within the same structure, so that's some good continuity for him. And Ai Ogura is another one of the Asia Talent Team guys who is a race winner, although not this season. But yeah, another great qualifying from him, and always a threat. You'd usually probably say that if it's a battle and they both stay on the bike and it's all good, clean racing, no drama, that Ogura usually has seemed to have the measure of Kunii, rather. But it should be an interesting one now that Kunii has got that race win, and see what happens today here at this very different Valencia track. Yeah, absolutely. Ai Ogura 6th in the championship going into this weekend. A fierce battle actually going on for 5th place as well. Sergio García on 96 points. Ai Ogura not too far back, 13 points adrift in 6th place on 83 points. Here's Davide Pezzoli then. Look at Davide. You can see a mixture of results there. One standout in Valencia when we came here earlier in the season, that 6th place finish in the second race. But otherwise, it's been a bit of an interesting season for him, as you can see. 4th place is where he lines up, heading that second row of the grid. The Italian rider will be hoping to put in a strong performance. He's riding for the Leopard Junior team. His teammate Aaron Polanco actually starting a little bit further down the order on board the number 47. Polanco down in 18th position on the grid going into this first race of this weekend. So you can see the grid there. You can see the activity down there as well. You can see the sun shining just in the sky as well. Very, very different to what we had here this time last weekend, Fran. Yeah, absolutely. You could even see Mark Woodage from Petronas Sprinter Racing at the back of the grid there in shorts, which is awfully brave. Regardless of the weather, it is still late November. But yeah, absolutely, I think everyone is fairly aware. I guess if you're watching the CV, you're probably a MotoGP fan as well, so you will be aware of the crazy torrential weekend we endured, I think is the word, for the Grand Prix here, and also for the test. The conditions interrupted action there a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit damp in the morning and then the rain coming in again. But this weekend has been absolutely glorious for most of the track action, barring a little bit of rain before the weekend proper. So qualifying completely dry, lovely sunny skies, and pretty similar conditions today. So that's one great thing for these guys. Obviously, they do have a bit more experience of what they're going to now go out and race in.
Yeah, continuity, consistency is very, very important indeed. We just saw Raul Fernandez there. What a season he's had in 2018 as well, compared to last year when he was riding the Mahindra. I think he had one standout result, one podium finish on board that bike, but otherwise it was a season to forget for him. He's really turned it around this season. By comparison as well, Jeremy Alcoba, he's 4th in the championship going into this final round of the season. Hasn't actually won a race so far this year, as you can see as well. A few podium finishes on the board there, 4 in total, but regardless, it has been a bit more of a difficult breakout season for the Spaniard. His teammate, actually, Sergio García, has really given him a run for his money this year.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty close between those two junior team Estrella Galicia 0-0 guys in 4th and 5th. And then the likes of Ai Ogura, Aleix Viu, Chanonchu even, they're still in with a shout of that kind of, you know, just top 3, top 5 championship shuffle. I'll get my words out eventually. Because obviously there's 50 points on the table again today, 2 races. Everything can change so quickly when you have that amount of points on the table in just one day of racing. So there's a lot to play for these guys a little bit further back. One guy who won't be taking part in that battle to move up a bit is Somkiat Chantra, who is instead in Jerez testing his new Moto2 machine. So he's out of that mix, but there's a good few names in there that really have a lot to gain today in this race, and those two Estrella Galicia guys are definitely 2 of them.
It's going to be interesting to see how these riders will fare over the course of today. You're looking here at Chanonchu, 15 years old he is, made history here last weekend in the Moto3 World Championship race by becoming the youngest ever winner of a Grand Prix motorcycle race. He lines up 8th on the grid. Let's just reflect quickly on that moment last weekend there, Fran. I don't know where to start because it was just an incredible performance. It
really was. It's one of the few times I've ever been in a media centre or near a media centre and everyone in it cheered. It was a really incredible performance from him. The riders in the press conference after the MotoGP race were very complimentary as well. But yeah, obviously that record had been held by Scott Redding from Donington 2008. So it was a 10-year-old record. And it did look like that would probably be safe because now the regulations are that you have to be 16 to be a full-time rider in the Moto3 World Championship. But there are 2 exceptions, one of which is the reigning junior Moto3 World Champion from this series, and the other is the reigning Red Bull Rookies Cup Champion, which Chanonchu was when he did his first appearance ever and won the race in those really difficult conditions, kept his head absolutely to perfection, and yeah, made a little bit of history.
Absolutely right. Brilliant stuff it was from him. We just saw Carlos Tatai by comparison. He's had a very mixed season. You can see DNFs in the first 4 races of 2018, and not really much to write home about otherwise than that for him. But he lines up in 9th position on the grid there for the Realia Vintia Academy rider. You can see the team members then getting ready to disperse their way from the grid back into pit lane, and we'll get ready to get this race underway. 18 laps for the Moto3 Junior World Championship. And here is how the grid lines up then ahead of the penultimate race of the season. Yuki Kunii, Makar Yurchenko, Ai Ogura on the front row. Davide Pezzoli, Raul Fernandez, Jeremy Alcoba on row 2. Yari Montella, Chanonchu, and then Carlos Tatai completes that 3rd row of this 2018 grid here for the Moto3 Junior World Championship.
Yep, and then we're moving on to row 4. We've got Aleix Viu in 10th with Ryusa Yamanaka and Celestino Vietti Ramos on that row 4, or Celestino Vietti as he is in the World Championship. Ricardo Rossi, Marc Garcia, Maximilian Koffler, Kevin Orgis on that row.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've got Wongtananoli Archie, then Ryu, then Tom Booth Amos, who moves up to the World Championship next year ahead of Salah and Garcia. Then we've got Kawakami, Van der Lagmart, and Jason De Pasquier on row 9.
And then we have Denis Onchu, a little bit out of position there for the young Turk. Jerry Salim, Brandon Pash, Stefano Neffa, Barry Baltus, Nicholas Spinelli, Alex Toledo, Inigo Iglesias, and Kevin Zanoni, completing that 12th row of the grid.
Eva Marias, Bin Mahadi, Jesperson, as well as Busari. Then comes Orgis Ikmal and Finn de Bruin, completing the 43 rider-strong grid as the riders depart then on their formation lap.
Yeah, so Tachikorn Boasi, he's a new name for this grid. Didn't quite get to mention him then. But he's from the Asia Talent Cup, had a couple of podiums this season, including a 2nd place in the season finale in Sepang. And he is in the junior talent team structure, kind of wild-carding or replacing a sort Somkiat Chantra. So for him, really, I mean, you know, penultimate row of the grid, you can look at that 2 different ways, but I think the best way to look at it is that that's a very impressive performance. The first time he's ever been over here, experience with the team, the machine, the track, to be able to not be last on the grid and to have got some good track time under his belt. It's a good performance from the Thai rider, and yeah, should be interesting to see. Hopefully he'll just want to complete both races, do the best job he can, and get the most experience out of the weekend.
Well, as we know in the Moto3 Junior World Championship, anything can happen, and it usually does as well. It's very unpredictable, to put it very mildly. So it'll be interesting to see how the riders will fare over the course of these 18 laps, and let's keep an eye on Boasi, see how he will fare. As Fran said, having come over from the Asia Talent Cup, it's a completely different kettle of fish going over to this Moto3 Junior World Championship. The level level is completely different. The machinery he's riding is also different as well. So he's going to have to, he's had to learn the circuit. He's had to learn how to compete in this championship and also ride around this Ricardo Tormo circuit over the last few days, so we'll be keen to keep an eye on how he gets on over the course of the races here today. So you can see the 43 rider strong field then filtering down through turn 12, through turn 13 and to that final part of the lap. You can see the championship standings here as well. Raúl Fernández 49 points ahead of Manuel Pagliani, so he is the world champion here going into this final round of the season. Great little battle going on there for third place though as well, and potentially for second. Kunii and Alcoba not too far away from Pagliani. They could overhaul him here today.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, there's 2 races here today. This is the first 25 points apiece for the wins. So that second place is definitely within reach, especially if one of these guys who are challenging Pagliani can put together 2 solid finishes. Doesn't necessarily have to be a win, just take 2 big hauls of points, then that runner-up space is definitely under threat, I think, today.
Absolutely. You can see Yuki Kunii there just psyching himself up, getting ready for the penultimate race of 2018. All of the grid slotting themselves in position as we get ready to get this one underway. The first race of the day here of the FIM CEV Repsol at the circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. There is your front row of the grid. Yuki Kunii, Makar Yurchenko and Ai Ogura. Look to the top left corner of your screen. Wait for those red lights to come on for the penultimate time in 2018. The Moto3 Junior World Championship is underway, and it's a really good start from Makar Yurchenko from second place off the grid. Kunii is bogging down a little bit, but he cuts the nose off of Yurchenko as we come down to the first corner. Look at Raúl Fernández on the outside as well. He gets shuffled out by the number 76 of Ruiu. Down to the first corner we go. It is Kunii who leads the way. Now the 2 Asia Talent Team bikes have held on. People running wide at the first corner as they all try and find track position. Look at the number 32 of Ai Ogura there, looking a little bit menacing on his teammate, but everybody making it pretty cleanly through those first couple of corners. But the upshot is that it is the number 33 of Yuki Kunii who leads the way from Ogura and from Raúl Fernández. Yeah,
it did look like maybe Kunii was going to lose out there just initially off the line. He didn't look like he'd really got it nailed that well, but he held on to it, got the whole shot. Ai Ogura obviously thinking better of immediately challenging his teammates, which can go wrong very early in races like this. But Raúl Fernández, that start round the outside, supreme confidence of a champion, I think, there, and immediately into that podium battle.
Great stuff from Raúl Fernández, and immediately trying to challenge for second position on Ai Ogura here, down in towards that left-hander of turn number 8. No way through for everybody there as we cross to a curb shot as the riders come filtering through that corner for the first time. A big group, and already a little bit of daylight being put between themselves. You can see Yari Montella there, who was just in 5th position, ahead of Makar Yurchenko, who's lost out a little bit on the start here as well. As you can see, he's just now down in 6th position there on board the number 76, so he's lost out there. Just in front, just behind him rather, is Davide Pezzoli and Aleix Viu there as well. So interesting to see how this first lap has gone. But you can see there Tom Booth Amos on board the Talent Team bike there. He's trying to make some ground. Tom Booth Amos having qualified quite a way down the order in 22nd position, trying to make his way up through the field.
So yeah, you can see Fernandez just lost out there, but it'd be interesting. I imagine he'll be able to get him back on the start-finish straight here, using the slipstream down into turn 1. And Ogura looks like he might be up for attacking for the lead as well. Maybe not, again, thinks better of it. But yeah, it's always an interesting one here at Valencia because there is the possibility of breaking away. We've seen that in this championship many a time. Dennis Foggia was the absolute king of here when we raced here and always used to disappear into the distance. So these guys know that if they are able to just make that gap and break that slipstream, although the straight isn't that long, they do really have a chance to just unleash their rhythm and try and get away at the front. So it can be an interesting one, but so far we've got a good front freight train with these guys, and yeah, we've got the champion in there and some former race winners, and it's all looking pretty tasty so far.
Fernández up into second place as well. Great stuff there for Raúl Fernández. He slices up the inside of Ai Ogura. Tell you, the man who's lost out really here was the number 52. That's Jeremy Alcoba. He lost some ground, but Ai Ogura fights it back into second place, down into the left-hander. Here comes Alcoba as well, looking like he was trying to challenge Yari Montella. No way through for him there. So it is as you were starting this lap between the top 3 now, but Raúl Fernández keen to get himself on that box here this morning.
Yeah, definitely. Fernandez just needs to be a little bit patient, I think. You know, obviously he's had the measure of this field more often than not this season. So there's no real rush to get through there, but obviously he does seem fairly keen to make some headway, making a move on Ai Ogura just a few minutes ago. And It looks like Ogura maybe is getting a little bit impatient to try and attack for the lead as well. Certainly a little bit closer to Kunii this time around. We'll have to see what happens into the braking zone into turn 1 now.
Yeah, Ai Ogura a little bit wide through that final corner there as well. That won't help his run onto the straight. Fortunately, he'll have a bit of saviour in the form of the slipstream from his teammate Yuki Kunii. Down towards the first corner, is Ogura going to think about launching a move down the inside of his teammates? Well, he's thinking about it, but he's not quite close enough to make anything happen through turn number 1. But he's signalling his intentions, as you said, Fran, there pretty early on. Somebody out into the car park. That looks like it could be Sergio Garcia, who was well wide at the first corner there. He'll need a ticket to get back in from there, probably. It was quite wide through that first corner. Race direction, as we know, and as we've seen here in Valencia, Fran, as well, they are going to be keeping a very watchful eye on that over the course of this one.
Yeah, definitely. You can't take too many liberties with track limits. You can't basically purposefully take the risk and just think, oh, well, you know, there's more space there that I can just use the green bits. You can't. You're meant to be using the track and racing on the track within the limits of the track. So mistakes and every now and then, you know, that's okay. But if you do start making a habit of it to try and gain some speed, that's when they will come down pretty hard on you and you'll probably get a penalty. But at the moment, I think that mistake from Garcia was fairly obviously a mistake, so wide it was. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one now if Ogura is going to have a little bit of patience, because Kunii looks really strong into turn 1, and I think his compatriot will have to cook up something fairly special to try and get past there if he's going to try and attack him there.
And as you said earlier on, Fran, that group really breaking away now. It is pretty much a top 6, nearly top 7 battle with Aleix Viu just in touching distance there for this race lead. So they're already breaking away. Chanon Chu doesn't really have much of an answer for these riders out there in front at the moment. He's down in 9th position so far, Chanon Chu, having lost 1 position off of the start. At the moment, though, it is still your race leader of Yuki Kunii out of that final corner over the timing line as well. Sergio Garcia now up into 10th place ahead of Max Koffler, Ryusei Yamanaka, Celestino Vietti, Bruno Ararachi. Then comes Carlos Tatai and Apiwat Wongtananon completing your top 15 points-paying positions. Lots of little battles. This is what we're used to seeing, though, at Valencia. Lots of little groups breaking away amongst one another and squabbling amongst one another as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, now we've started to get sort of, yeah, all kind of partitioning off into different fights with a slightly different pace. But these guys at the front now, yeah, it looks like, oh no, that's a crash with Booth, Amos and Pizzoli, is it? The graphic tells us.
Yeah, they've gone down.
Have to see if we get a replay of what's happened there with those guys and hope they're both okay. So that's a shame. But yeah, so we now have this front group, and like you said, Chanon Chu just at the moment in this championship and in these conditions just doesn't seem to have that race-winning pace that he had last weekend in the wet. But I think it will be fairly interesting to see what's going to happen with these guys. These front 4 are slowly starting to make a little bit of daylight behind them as well, but it's not very much, and it can be caught up on the straight, especially with the extra slipstream of all those bikes punching a hole in the air.
Yeah, no moves being made at the moment. Everybody keeping it quite calm and consistent. And the Asia Talent Team boys, they'll have thought about this going into this race in particular as well. They'll have had a discussion amongst one another as to what the situation would be if they were in a 1-2 position as well. Of course, in terms of the championship, Yuki Kunii was 3rd going into this round, so it does mean that he's got a little bit more to gain in terms of that championship position. Ai Ogura down in 6th place as well. He'll be wanting to make some ground, so let's keep a keen eye and see whether those two work together or indeed start squabbling amongst one another, whether the inner racer does come out in them or whether they'll be using their team tactics to try and break away from the rest of the field. At the moment, they haven't got much of an opportunity to do so. It's still Makar Yurchenko who set the fastest lap last time around. No apology to Makar as well, because I said at the start of the race that it was Gerard Ryu who was on the outside. Of course, it is Makar Yurchenko running that number 76 here in the Moto3 Junior World Championship. He's there in 5th position. Lost a round off of that opening lap there as well, but still in good touching distance as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you were saying with the Asia Talent Team guys, it's going to be a pretty interesting one. We have had a little drama within that team before, and unfortunately 2 of the same liveries down in the gravel at the same time. But so far, it's all super clean and a great job from those 2. I would imagine that, you know, they're not going to race each other too closely or take too many risks, certainly until maybe the last lap of the race, where it becomes much more like, okay, well, you know, I want to move up in the championship just as much as you, so we're going to have to fight this out. But yeah, at the moment, I think you can see there the Aleix Viu just tapping the back of his leathers to say, follow me. But I think he had also gone wide a couple of corners ago, so not sure maybe the best person to follow. You've got to be fairly on it and have a good rhythm. Yeah, we're expecting people to do that.
Well, the top 5 really now have broken away, as you were saying there, Fran, from the likes of Aleix Viu and Yari Montella, who are just dropping back out of touch with these guys in 6th and 7th position. We see that so much around here at this circuit, Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. As we said, we do get those breakaway groups, and that is proving to be the case quite significantly here as well. You can see there Jeremy Alcoba, he's in a really unfortunate position. He's trying to attack Raúl Fernandez in front, but he's also having to do the defensive job of keeping himself in front of the number 76 of Makar Yurchenko, and he puts himself in front of Raúl Fernandez at the final corner as well. That'll help his charge onto this start-finish straight.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of a wobble in the background there for Yari Montella as he just tries to keep on the back of Aleix Viu. But these five at the moment, they've been able to just create a little bit more of a gap each lap around, and they'll just have to be careful that they don't start fighting with each other too much. The two guys in the front are fairly sensible at the moment, not really holding each other up, but certainly Alcoba and Fernandez. That would also suggest if they're able to chop and change like this and keep right on the tail of those Asia Talent Team bikes, that they maybe do have a little bit more in their pocket if they were to, you know, concentrate more on the pace rather than necessarily squabbling for position at this point.
You can see Tom Booth Amos now back in the garage, so it looks like the team are going to try and get him restarted. A bit of a shake of the head there for Booth Amos. He'll be moving up to the Moto3 World Championship. Spoke to him yesterday, and he's one of the riders who just can't wait for this season to finish, though. He's excited to get himself out on that new KTM for 2019 with the CIP team in the World Championship, but also to write off what has been really a tough season for the Briton.
Yeah, definitely lots of injuries and lots of interruptions to this season for Tom Booth Amos, but a few the top 5 finish in Albacete, super impressive, and some good points, so we'll be hoping to at least maybe get back out there in this race and get some track time and get ready for a final attack in race 2. But yeah, like you say, moving to the CIP squad next season in the World Championship alongside Darren Binder, which we were saying I think is the most laddish lineup we could possibly imagine. And I hope they have mercy on their press officer. Yeah, we're going to have to set up a camera in those guys' box, aren't we, next year, just to see what the harmony is like in that pit box. Down in towards that final corner we go, though, here at turn 15 in the Moto3 Junior World Championship. And the top 5 still lining astern at the moment. Aleix Viu just has broken away from the back of Yari Montella now, so he could come into play with these riders in front as well. Behind you can see the number 6 of Ryusei Yamanaka. At the moment, he's just defending from Sergio Garcia. Celestino Vietti there also in amongst the mix, and Bruno Iranchi on board the other 658 machine. That's another rider that's gone down. That's Ryan van der Laagmaat. Well, it's not actually Ryan van der Laagmaat because it's one of the Petronas bikes. Let's have a look and see what happened. Front end through turn 4. A classic off going through there, sadly, and it's actually Mohamed Mahadi that's gone down going through that corner. Yeah, that's a shame for those guys. They're essentially here to try and gain experience this season, those Petronas sprinter guys. So always a bit of a shame when you don't get that full race distance, and obviously he wasn't able to get back in the race. So reset for race 2 for him, and try and get back on it and get a few more laps of this track in. But yeah, like we were saying, it seems like Aleix Viu is just slowly starting to make up a little bit of ground and get back towards this front 5. But definitely Yari Montella now, it seems to be a little bit of a bridge too far for the Italian, and he's just losing a little bit of ground. Alcoba sends it up the inside of Raúl Fernandez into the left-hander as well. So Alcoba would like to get himself back onto the podium as well. It has been a challenging season for Alcoba. He hasn't stood on the podium since Aragon, if you remember as well, earlier on this season. Another rider that's gone down, that's Brandon Pash on board the AGR KTM. So sadly he has crashed out, the American rider holding his wrist there as well. Hopefully he's okay. We'll give you any updates that we do receive there, but a sad way to end his race here this morning. Yeah, definitely. Apologies, I said his name a little bit too German style in the grid rundown earlier, Pash. But yeah, sad, but obviously up and mostly okay. Hopefully nothing wrong with that hand or wrist that he was just holding there. We could just see, just around that few corners, Kunii just seems to have really got the hammer down now. You can see a little bit of a gap there, but I'm not sure how much of that he'll still have by the end of this straight, although he has been so strong into turn 1. So if Kunii has decided, okay, now I'm going to pull the pin, should be an interesting one. We've also got the tyre sheet through from Dunlop, and Kunii is on the medium rear, whereas Ogura is on the soft. So it could be a bit of an interesting one. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the medium rear would, in theory, last longer over a race distance. The soft one would give it more grip in the early stages of the race, but of course, you do suffer with higher tyre wear, in theory, towards the end of the race. So let's keep an eye on Ogura and Kunii's pace and see what the difference is between them as we come into the last 10 laps and see what it's like. In terms of the lap times, actually, last time around, they were separated by just a few tenths of a second. Kunii 140.663, whereas Ai Ogura was a 140.910. So 3 tenths of a second separating those riders through there. Not much separating them on circuit at the moment as well. You can see here Jeremy Alcoba's really beginning to put the hammer down now. He's getting all over the back of Ai Ogura as we come down in towards turn number 8. No opportunities for him to find his way past at the moment, but again,
wants to get back on the podium. The first time since Aragon he would be on the podium as well, but if he could get himself a race victory, that would be a great way to end his season after what's been a bit more of a tough campaign for him in 2018.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's pretty interesting as well. The gap's changing so much depending on which point of the track they are. So obviously a few guys stronger through different parts and different corners, making up a few gains. And it looked like Viu had really managed to close in a few minutes ago. But now, just again, looks like there's a bit of a gap there back to the Spaniard. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on him. Doesn't seem to be able to gain that much down the start-finish straight, despite the fact there's a good few bikes ahead of him.
Oh, that's
and then
Yari Montella.
Yes, so he's missing from that shot now and from that battle. That's because he has sadly crashed out of this one. So this will help Viu if they're all fighting ahead of him, and that the hole punched in the air gets that much bigger if they're 2-3 abreast ahead of him. It helps him to just make that little tiny bit more of a gain in the slipstream, and you can see he just seems to be getting a bit closer. But Kunii so far absolutely solid at the head of this race. Yeah,
really good stuff. Yuki Kunii has led pretty much every session so far this weekend as well. He's had both qualifying sessions. He led the warm-up earlier on this morning as well, and this is exactly what we were expecting to see from the Japanese rider. He'll be doing a really good job to take victory, but he's got some close pressure from behind as well. Raúl Fernandez again really piling that pressure on to the Japanese rider now, and you can see as well Ai Ogura just beginning to drop into the clutches there of the number 52 of Jeremy Alcoba. Through the left-hander we go, and then down in towards turn number 8. This is where the slipstream is quite effective. You go on the brakes here, there's a little bit of a bump actually on the corner entry there, which does unsettle the bikes, and you can see with the corner speed that they carry, it is very easy to lose the front end going through that particular corner as well.
Yeah, it could be pretty interesting that if Fernandez has thought, you know, maybe Kunii seems to have the pace here, and he could just see that little bit of a gap appearing and maybe decided to strike now and take Ogura. But, you know, at the moment, there's nothing too worrying for any of them. They've all got fairly similar pace. And Kunii looking cool and confident at the head of this group, but still not able to make that break. And Fernandez now looks like he's going to try and attack the Japanese rider. Very close behind him there. Have to see what happens into turn 1 next time around. I imagine that's probably where he'll wait for, although he did lose a bit of ground through there again.
Track limits warning for the number 5, that's Alex Toledo. He's a bit further down the order, is Toledo at the moment, not actually inside the top 23, which is where our timing screen goes down to here in the commentary box, but still exceeding track limits, probably just trying to gain that little bit much. Speaking of gaining as well, Ai Ogura gains a position down in towards that first corner. He's now ahead of Raúl Fernandez, so nice little move there for the number 32, and signalling his intention. This is where it's going to get very interesting indeed, and where the action will really start coming into play. We've seen the riders being a bit conservative in those first few laps and in the initial to mid stages of this one, but in the latter half now is where we're really going to start seeing those gloves coming off, surely.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And I think Fernandez, you could really see the price he paid there for just having been those extra couple of meters further off the back of Kunii. But Ai Ogura there, just a bit of a wobble, and Alcoba will definitely be keenly watching that and looking for a way through again. But Kunii still absolutely unshakable at the head of this race. So Ogura maybe, you know, just a few little scrappy bits on the last couple of laps. Now back in second. Be interesting to see what happens with these guys in all the squabbling and the tactics, because we do now have 9 laps to go. So it's 8 after this one is completed. So we're getting there now. We're getting into the sharp end, or the business end of the race now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where, as we said, it's going to get very interesting indeed. Further down the order as well, Abián Montella has dropped out of the points. Great ride from Ricardo Rossi on board the number 71. He's now inside 15th position. That's a great performance for Rossi as well. He was right down the order in terms of his position early on in the race. Qualified in 13th, but really dropped down in the early stages. You can see there as well at the bottom of your screen. Track limits warnings for the number 5. That, of course, is Alex Toledo, as we mentioned, and also the number 71 there as well. That, of course, is Ricardo Rossi, in fact, as well. So the rider who is in 15th position just had to be a little bit careful in these latter stages, because race direction keeping a very watchful eye on these riders.
Yeah, definitely. It's not to be taken lightly, really, a track limits warning. You have to just be careful after you've had that, because, you know, if you're in a close group like this and you get a penalty, such as, for example, drop 1 position, okay, you know, you drop that, you take it back, you go on with your race. But if you're at the back of a group and the next group behind is, you know, 2-3 seconds behind you, to drop 1 position is a really big thing and will greatly affect your race. So they definitely need to be careful.
Absolutely. Jacito Garcia, the number 20 as well, also getting a track limits warning here as well. So going to have to be, again, a little bit careful, just not push the limits too much in these latter stages. The thing is, he won't really know it out there on the circuit as well. If he's running those lines on a normal basis, then he's not going to be too aware of it. He might find himself with a nice penalty after the race. So let's keep an eye on that and see where the race direction do indeed come down on those riders if they continue to exceed those track limits. Through the left-handed kink, into the right-hander we go, though, with now the top 4 leading group at the moment. You can see there Makar Yurchenko as well. It has been a torrid season for Yurchenko in more ways than one, really, hasn't it? Oh, and he's gone down as well, so it ends the commentator's curse, coming right into play there for Yurchenko. Big drama here for the Kazakhstani rider, and you can see there, well, he is ready to put an end to what has been a very difficult 2018 campaign. So Yurchenko crashes out of the race lead battle.
Yeah, it's a shame for the Kazakh rider. Like we were saying, he's had a few ups and downs this season, but qualifying was definitely an up, and there you can see just overcooked it a little bit. That's a shame. Obviously, he looked fairly solid in that front group. Looked like he'd be on to be able to fight for that podium. So, yeah, it's just split these guys up a little bit as well. You can see just that bit of daylight now created between the top 3 and Fernandez. Obviously, you know, when you see an incident like that ahead of you do close the gas a little bit and just make sure you can avoid it and, yeah, not make any contact to make the situation even worse. But Yurchenko looked up and okay-ish, obviously a bit dejected. But there is another race later today, so hopefully he can capitalise from that front row start, which he'll get to enjoy again at 2 o'clock. Yeah,
absolutely right. It'll be good to see Yurchenko fighting up the sharp end of the grid, unlike for example, the World Superbike Championship, where they have a different style of grid format for that second race. It is exactly the same here in the Moto3 Junior World Championship as it is for race 1. They all go based on the qualifying results, so Yurchenko will be starting from second position if, of course, the team can get that bike fixed ahead of that second race here later on. But the damage to the bike didn't look too bad. Of course, damage to Yurchenko, he looked a little bit winded, but otherwise it seemed to be up and okay and managed to walk away, thankfully, from that incident there as well.
Yeah, definitely. So now you can see it looks like the 2 guys, Viu and Fernandez, now able to make up a little bit of that distance and back in this group. But there is still that tiny bit of a gap, although it changes corner by corner. They concertina so much, it can be so deceptive. But Kunii still at the head of this race, absolutely unflappable. But it's going to be an interesting one, I think, to see now if Alcoba is going to attack. He did make a move here earlier in the race, not quite, thinks better of it this time. But Kunii has just been the class of the field so far, absolutely unflappable. But it's going to get pretty interesting now, I think, with these guys. They've obviously seen that incident. They must be pushing pretty hard out there. And, yeah, we've not got that many laps to go now. 5 more after this one they've just started. Great battle going on between Aleix Viu and Raul Fernandez as they make their way onto the back of this leading trio now as well. You can see a little bit wide there for the number 52 of Jeremy Alcoba through that first corner. That allows Raul Fernandez to close up even more. And Alcoba a little bit wide there through turn number 2. Takes a later apex through there. Manages to hold on to that position, thankfully, there as well. Number 6 has had a warning for track limits. That's Ryusei Yamanaka. So Yamanaka, at the moment in this race, he's inside the top 10. So if he does incur a penalty from race direction... Oh, no! A big crash there. And that's Kunii, the race leader, who's gone down. We were saying he was unfathomable in this race, and he's crashed out in the latter stages with just 6 laps to go. He's thrown what was potentially a certain victory all away. Yeah, that's I feel a little bit responsible for that. Obviously, waxing lyrical about how unflappable he was at the head of this race. Led pretty much every lap and every corner so far, and then just crashes out there. So close to the end to get the chance to fight for the win and the podium, so that's a shame. He did look, you know, he immediately was up and okay. Fernandez, sorry there, he was gesticulating wildly in the commentary box. I didn't think he was going to get that stopped in a month of Sundays, but he managed to get himself ahead of Ai Ogura into the right-hander. That was incredible. What a move. That was a very good move. I think definitely he will have seen that crash for Kunii and now think, right, this is mine, and try and really attack now and get to the head of this race. But Kunii obviously looks fairly okay, so that's a shame. Just see what happened. I think we're going to have it out of shot. He's slightly. A little bit wide. Just a little bit wide. Just lost the front end and slides out. So shame for him, and obviously couldn't get the bike restarted either. So yes, one more name out of that front group. It's all getting quite dramatic now, and we've not even started the battle on the last couple of laps. Yeah, absolutely. It's starting to be a race of attrition, this one. That leading 6 has now become a leading quartet between the riders as well. So Kunii goes tumbling down our timing sheets here in the commentary box. You can see that battle in the background as well. You can see the daylight these riders have been able to put between themselves as well. Nearly 9 seconds separating the top 4. And then Chanon Chu, who's really been able to benefit, actually, is now inside the top 5, thankfully because of other riders' demise and also his ascension through the field in the latter stages of this one. Yeah, definitely. You can see that will be an expensive mistake for Kunii in terms of the standings going into race 2. If Jeremy Alcoba is able to keep the position he's in now or even gain even further, would move from 3rd to 4th and just that little bit further away from Pagliani. So a bit of a shame for him, but there is another race today, and this is far from done. We've seen already 2 names who'd look fairly confident throughout this race already crash out, so who knows what's going to happen now.
Well, Raul Fernandez, Christmas has come early for him at the moment. The race lead, considering he was down there in the lower half of this battle, just inside the top 5 a few laps ago. Now he is the race leader, the 2018 World Champion. He's already been crowned. We've also had a notice here in our commentary position as well on our timing screen. The rider number 39, that is number 39. I'm just looking through my timing sheet. Actually, we have got a number 39 in this race, so well, it must be a mistake. Rider number 20, though, that is Jacito Garcia. He's been given a 3-second time penalty to be added after the race. Garcia just outside of the points paying positions, but given how close it is further down, that's going to drop him just into the lower half of the top 20.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, obviously, just pushed that a little bit too far. We've got another crasher as well, Ivan Miralles, and so that's a shame for him.
Front end through turn 4 again.
Yeah, it's yeah, really turning into a bit of a race of attrition now, which is a little bit surprising considering the conditions are so good, although we are a bit later in the year and it is a little bit cooler, so you know, that's definitely its own challenge. But these 4 at the moment then, nothing to choose between them at all. Fernandez, although he's been able to get to the head of them now, has not been able to break away at all, and Ogura looking very threatening there in second.
Absolutely. You can see Raul Fernandez there as well, just looking at the other riders behind, just how different his riding style is as well. He's got a very elbows-up riding style as he goes through those corners as well. It's very Ben Spies-esque in some particular ways. You see the other riders, they're using more of a shoulder-out sort of style. It seems to be working for Raul Fernandez. He's leading the race at the moment. Doesn't look to be too phased from the riders behind as well, and it would be an incredible result there for Raul Fernandez. It would be his 4th victory of the season if he's able to hold on here. We're looking at a replay going over the timing line as well. Here's Aleix Viu there in second place. You can see Ai Ogura down to that first corner, really aggressively cutting the nose off, and also Jeremy Alcoba and Aleix Viu, they're getting very close for comfort in that first turn. A
little bit brutal that, maybe a little bit too brutal for quite a few laps to go yet, but got the move done, no contact, nice and clean, so you know, racing hard is definitely far from against the rules. It's what we get every single weekend in the CV. So yeah, it's a good battle so far between these guys, but here you can see the confirmation on the graphics of rider 20, that 3-second time penalty for Jacito Garcia. So shame for him. It does drop him out of that contention for the points really. So yeah, bit of a difficult end to the race there, but you know, they've got to learn about the track limits early. That's part of this championship as well. It's not just about winning, it's about learning your racecraft and how to compete at this level and above, and track limits are an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely right. And race direction, of course, being as stringent as they would be in the World Championship race. Bit wide there out of the first turn for Raul Fernandez. That allows a window of opportunity for the number 32 of Ai Ogura, but he's not quite able to make anything in towards turn number 2. And it is getting very hot under the collar between these top 3 at the moment. Aleix Viu there in 4th place. Here comes Alcoba down the inside at turn 4 of Ogura, gets the move nicely done, and he's up into 2nd position now, so it's a Spanish 1-2.
Yeah, that was very nicely done from Alcoba there, just enough room to make it through, just picked his pocket a little bit there, Ogura, and now we've got another one, so we've got a Spanish 1-2-3. So Aleix Viu moving up there as well. Aleix Viu's made some really impressive progress, obviously, to close down this group and to stay on the bike when a few of them obviously just pushed over that limit, and now to be well within podium contention.
Here comes Alcoba down the inside of Fernandez at turn 8 there as well, makes the move stick. Nicely done there for Alcoba, so the junior team Estrella Galicia rider now leads the way with 2.5 laps remaining here. This is getting very tasty indeed, and this is where we'll start seeing those rash moves being made in these last couple of laps.
The rash might be a little bit harsh, but yeah, they often can be. These guys, yeah, pretty hot under the collar, I don't know, what's the word? Just they're a little bit pumped up, aren't they, in these races and in this championship. It's great to see, obviously, all so young and learning so much as they go, but some really impressive talent out there, but also some very ambitious moves at times. So this is going to be an interesting one, I think, and yeah, these 4 now just going to absolutely fight it out for that podium.
Look at the number 52, that was Jeremy Alcoba, who was over the timing line. He was going right over to the other side of the circuit to try and break that slipstream. All to no avail, though, as Ai Ogura takes the lead into the first corner. Fernandez tries to go the long way around at that first corner. That's not a move that's going to stick through there, sunshine, sadly enough for him. But he is, again, looking very, very menacing indeed.
Yeah, definitely. I always find it quite funny when they're trying to break that slipstream and heading over to the other side of the track, but then everyone behind them does the same. The best one is at Sepang when you've got over 1 kilometre of straight and then they're all just on the wrong side of the track. It's like, guys, it's the same slipstream, but you're all out of position.
Ignacio Iglesias, who's gone down as well on board the KTM. So it's been a real race to forget for the AGR team here as well, because we've had 2 crashes for them, and also the number 20 of Josito Garcia with that time penalty. They'll be hoping to refocus quite significantly for that last race of the day.
Yeah, definitely. At least they do have one more race, so they get to try and end the season on a bit more of a high, but a difficult race, but everyone up and okay. So it looks like everyone should be able to start that second race, which is also important as well. So penultimate lap now. It's actually all calmed down a little bit for the most of this lap, but I think I might have spoken too soon already. But we'll have to see. I think it's going to be a bit of a last lap special for these guys. They're all fairly experienced. They all know what they're doing. They know when to strike, and they're very, very, you know, sort of up there on racecraft and how to win races. So I think it's going to be an interesting last lap to see who wants to be where.
I tell you, Aleix Viu could win this. You know, he is looking very racy indeed. He's in 4th position, but the moves he was making, the lines he was taking, going through into that final sector, and he was really, really trying to put the pressure onto Ai Ogura and Jeremy Alcoba then. So final lap time here in the Moto3 Junior World Championship, 4 kilometres from home, and who is going to take the victory out of these 4 riders? Down towards that first corner we go for the final time. It's Raul Fernandez who leads the way. Ogura slots himself into 2nd position ahead of the number 52 of Jeremy Alcoba. Down in towards turn number 2, very close indeed between these riders. No moves being made through here, but it's probably the latter part of the lap really, going down in towards turn 15, where we're going to be seeing these riders thinking about making moves. Yeah,
definitely. At the moment, Fernandez looks like he's got it all pretty nailed, but he'll have to have an awful lot bigger gap than that behind him if he's going to escape attack on the last few corners and down the start-finish straight to the line.
Well, Ai Ogura there as well. He's in that really unfortunate position, as I mentioned earlier on, about attacking and defending at the same time. He's trying to defend from the fight of Jeremy Alcoba. You can see Fernandez going right over to the right-hand side of the circuit. That is going to compromise his run, though, and indeed it does. Here comes Ai Ogura. He takes the lead away, and Alcoba is nearly down the inside at turn number 8 as well. It's so close between them, and Ai Ogura does pick the pocket of the number 23 of Raul Fernandez there. Nice little move there. Just lost a bit too much momentum taking that tighter line, didn't he there, Raul Fernandez? And that sadly has put him out of this race lead with less than half a lap remaining.
Yeah, I imagine he won't try that again next time he races at the circuit, Ricardo Tormo. That definitely saw him lose out an awful lot more than gain. And Ai Ogura just got a much better drive around there as well. But now it looks like he might be under attack.
Oh, here comes Aleix Viu as well as Jeremy Alcoba. It's so close into this final corner. Alcoba is going to send it down the inside at the final turn. What a move from Jeremy Alcoba. He's out wide. It's going to be a drag to the line here in race 1 of the Moto3 Junior World Championship. Over the line we go. It's Ogura who takes victory ahead of Raul Fernandez. And Jeremy Alcoba takes 2nd on the line by 0.02 of a second. And you saw there Aleix Viu with what looked to be a technical problem over the line. He does hold on to 4th position. And look at this gaggle of riders to the line there as well. My goodness me. Garcia takes 5th. Chanon Chu in 6th. Celestino Vietti in 7th. Philippe Salag 8th. Ryusa Yamanaka 9th. And Max Koffler inside the top 10. But what a final lap there. What a final corner. Ambitious from Jeremy Alcoba, just bit off a little bit more than he could chew. Ai Ogura says thank you very much indeed, and he is into the top position and takes that race victory.
Yeah, you can see how Ogura rather was super sharp there. Immediately saw what Alcoba had done, cut straight back to the inside, and just got his head down and aimed straight for the line. So Alcoba was ambitious and pretty impressive that he got it stopped at all and managed to really take that podium, really. But yeah, it's classic last corner drama in the CV, and another great almost photo finish. And then you can see Fernandez taking the opportunity to celebrate that title on the track a little bit more.
Yeah, he celebrated it, of course, yesterday after qualifying to Raul Fernandez, but the proper on-circuit celebrations for the number 23 do take place now there as well. He's got the T-shirt, and he's going to have the number 1 surely put on his bike, and Raul Fernandez, oh, he'll be going on to great things, surely, as we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast as well. 2017, he had an absolutely torrid time with that, what was the Aspar Mahindra back then. They changed over to the KTM for this year as well, and it has been absolutely incredible. What a season it is for Raul Fernandez. He takes another podium this year as well. Brilliant performance from him, and that does make it his 4th podium of the season. Doesn't quite take that victory, just misses out, of course, finishing in 3rd position there as well. Less than a 10th of a second separating those top 3 as they went over the timing line as well. And you can see the on-track celebrations still taking place here now there for Raul Fernandez. A T-shirt and the Spanish flag draped around his neck, and we'll be having an interview both with the race winner of Ai Ogura and then with Raul Fernandez after their podium celebrations. Absolutely fantastic stuff, and also a special helmet for him to commemorate that title as well for Raul Fernandez. Absolutely brilliant, brilliant stuff for him. And let's see what 2019 will hold for him when he inevitably makes that step up to that Moto3 World Championship. You can see the team there just getting rid of the number 23 on his bike to replace it with the number 1. You can see Ai Ogura there as well. Well, a race of 2 halves really for the Asia Talent team, wasn't it? Crashes from Yuki Kunii, crashes from Tom Booth Amos, but the race victory from Ai Ogura, absolutely brilliant, and the number 1 on the front of the Ángel Nieto KTM as well for Raul Fernandez. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Ai Ogura, 17 years old he is, and that will be very, very welcome as well. His first victory of the 2018 campaign. He's been close, but it's been no cigar for him so far this season. 3 other podiums he's had so far this year, and now finally that victory does come in the penultimate race of that 2018 season. Jeremy Alcoba as well, a brilliant performance from him, and his first podium, as we said as well, since Motorland Aragon back earlier this year. So absolutely fantastic stuff as well for Jeremy Alcoba. He'll be very, very pleased with that. You can see they're just trying to bump start that Ángel Nieto KTM there for Raul Fernandez. They have managed to get it going, and they are just going to give him the flag as well for Andreas Perez, of course. Andreas Perez, the rider who sadly lost his life in Catalonia earlier on this season in a tragic accident, and all of these riders, of course, very, very close with Andreas Perez and paying homage to him. Really, really nice touch there for Raul Fernandez. Brilliant to see him with that number 1 on board his KTM as well. Well-deserved title, it's got to be said. Manuel Pagliani, of course, going into this final round, did have just a slight whisker of hope. 50 points available. He was 49 points adrift, but of course Pagliani not racing here this weekend did, of course, put him out of contention for that. And Raul Fernandez is the Moto3 Junior World Champion of 2018, and when he makes that step up to the World Championship next year, surely he is going to be one to watch. Let's take a look at this final corner though. Look at how late that lunge was from Alcoba, and look at the opportunist switchback there from the number 32 of Ai Ogura. You can see Alcoba ran it out wide. That compromised his drive onto the start-finish straight. Ogura said, "Thank you very much indeed," or sayonara as they probably say in Japan. In fact, not sayonara, that's goodbye, isn't it? I'm getting my Japanese confused, as you can tell. I'm far from fluent. But anyway, getting back to it, brilliant, brilliant stuff for the number 1 of Raul Fernandez. A fantastic result for him. A fantastic season, as we said. Not quite that victory, but he has got one more opportunity later on this afternoon as well, and he will want to do that. Very, very much so. Just completing this cooling down lap now, and making his way back into Parc Fermé. Well, he'll be celebrating with that Ángel Nieto team. And also, of course, on the rostrum there as well with his fellow competitors. Circuit Ricardo Tormo here, of course, in Valencia. An absolutely fantastic track. Does always produce some very good racing. You can see Raul Fernandez, lots of support for him here as well. And you can see the Moto3 Junior World Champion flag there, gracing the grandstands above pit lane here this morning. Just completing that cool-down lap now. He'll make his way, as we said, back into Parc Fermé, and then, of course, be celebrating amongst his team and fellow competitors. Slight wheelie as he comes into pit lane there. These Moto3 bikes, of course, 250cc single-cylinder machines, so it is quite difficult to have the power to be able to wheelie as well. I'll tell you what I want to know, though, is how he's able to see through that crash helmet with that sticker on the front. Well, he's able to stop it in time, thankfully, and a nice little stoppie as well as he comes into Parc Fermé. What a season it's been for Raul Fernandez. The photographers down there, the team going crazy, and the pit board as well to commemorate that World Championship. Of course, the Ángel Nieto team, formerly the Aspar team, changing their name, of course, in honour of the 12+ one-time World Champion Ángel Nieto, who sadly lost his life last year. And, well, he'll be smiling down on the team and smiling down on Raul Fernandez after that one. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So the photos take place down here in Parc Ferme as well. All smiles, although you probably can't see it under the crash helmet there of Raúl Fernández. Just a brilliant, brilliant result for both team and rider, and very, very keen to hear the thoughts, of course, of Ai Ogura and also Raúl Fernández following that race. Doesn't even look like he's out of breath in any way, shape or form, does he? So celebrations all round. Of course, Raúl Fernández not quite old enough to be drinking the champagne, but I'm sure he'll be having a good time here tonight as well. So final results then from that race. Ai Ogura takes his first victory in the penultimate race of the season ahead of Alcoba and Fernandez. Aleix Viu, that technical problem right on the line, put him out of contention ahead of García, Chanon Chu, Celestino Vietti, Philippe Salak and Ryusei Yamanaka inside the top 9 positions. Max Koffler ahead of Gerard Ryu, Apiwatwong Tananon, Ricardo Rossi, as well as Bruno Irachi and Kevin Orgis completing your points finishes. Aaron Palenko just missed out. Barry Bouters, that's a good result from him. He had a penalty post-qualifying yesterday and has made his way up to 17th position. That's a very strong result considering he started in the lower half of the top 20. So some highlights then from the Moto3 Junior World Championship Race 1. Well, of course, it was Yuki Kunii who led the way off the start, but Ai Ogura signalled his intentions pretty early on. It was all elbows out as the number 76 of Makar Yurchenko and the number 23 of Raúl Fernández got a little bit close in those first couple of corners. Few riders running wide, but everybody keeping it, thankfully, on the straight and narrow through turn number 2. Lots of close racing going on in the early stages of that race. You can see a breakaway group did begin to form, though, in the mid-stages. That was the number 52 of Jeremy Alcoba making his way up Raúl Fernández. This, of course, was when we had Makar Yurchenko involved in that battle for the race lead. We saw a few crashes as well. That was one of the AGR bikes going down at turn number 4. Not the only rider we saw going down there either. Again, Jeremy Alcoba getting himself past Raúl Fernández in the mid-stages of this race. Looked like Makar Yurchenko would be a contender until this crash. A big high side for Yurchenko, sadly putting him out of contention for the race victory. And he will be trying to rectify that for his final race of the season. It became a three-way scrap for a while. That was until Aleix Viu got himself onto the back of this group as well. And then Yuki Kunii, your race leader, he crashed out as well. Big drama for the number 33 after what had been a perfect performance from him up until that point. But to the line, though, you can see there was lots of great battles, and this was going on to the penultimate lap of the race. Raúl Fernández, he went for that inside line going into that left-handed kink. It put him out of shape and put him out of position as well. He lost that race lead to the number 32 of Ai Ogura and also lost out as well, nearly there to the number 52 of Jeremy Alcoba. Alcoba sailed it down the inside of that final turn, just a little bit wide though, which allowed Ai Ogura, Raúl Fernández and Aleix Viu to try and take profit. Ogura took the victory on the line. And you can see there that Alcoba finished in second ahead of Raúl Fernández in third position. Aleix Viu, what looks to be a technical problem for him on the line. The team will be aiming to try and fix that ahead of race number 2. Regardless, a very impressive performance there for Aleix Viu as well. Strong 4th place finish, his best result actually since Jerez earlier on this year as well, back in September. But no disputing Raúl Fernández then, the 2018 Moto3 Junior World Champion. What a brilliant, brilliant performance from the Spaniard. And you can see the riders then making their way onto the podium. We'll be hearing from them after the podium celebrations take place. 2 Spaniards on the podium, 1 Japanese rider in the middle, that is Ai Ogura, and that of course gives something for the Asia talent team to smile about here today as well. Brilliant, brilliant performance from the top 3, brilliant performance from all involved really. A shame that Aleix Viu wasn't able to try and make a challenge over onto that final line. And you can see the trophies being presented first of all to the Asia talent team there in the winning team here for this morning. And now Raúl Fernández takes that 3rd place trophy there as well. Shaking the hand, of course, of all of the riders. And then presenting Raúl Fernández with that trophy. See the chants in the backgrounds there as well. Or hear the chants, rather, I should say. Jeremy Alcoba, a 2nd place finish for him. What does 2019 hold? Will it be a move up to the World Championship? Or will it be another year here in the Junior World Championship? It has been a challenging season for Alcoba. He'd love to take a victory, but he is going to have to work very, very hard for it. He's only had the 1 so far this year in race 1 at Jerez. Meanwhile, Ai Ogura, some free Repsol petrol for him. Nicely done there for Ai Ogura. Celebrations on the podium, and now then it is time for the Japanese national anthem. So the Japanese national anthem does play out for Ai Ogura. A brilliant, brilliant performance from the Japanese rider. He'll be absolutely thrilled with that one. You can see the celebrations on the podium as well. We'll be hearing from these guys in just a few moments. We'll be hearing from Ai Ogura and also Raul Fernandez very, very soon indeed. So there we are then. Let's have a look at the championship standings, shall we? After the first race in the Moto3 Junior World Championship here in Valencia, Raul Fernandez, of course, undisputedly the world champion. Manuel Pagliari, though, has had his second place in the title cut to just 10 points going into the final race of the season. So he could be set to lose that position as well. And Yuki Kunii, let's not forget, also not too far away there either. Let's hope Yuki Kunii is able to finish that race and have something of a stronger end to his season following that crash as well. You can see Philippe Salat, Mark Garcia, Abián Montana also in the mix there. Dennis Onchu, quiet race for Dennis Onchu actually there as well. Let's see whether he's able to do something as well. Chan Onchu also not lighting up the timing screens, but not a bad race at all from Chan. Managed to take advantage where others faltered. It's going to be an interesting time for these riders. So we'll be hearing from them as well.
Absolutely incredible season. What can you tell us after that victory?
The race was quite difficult because the wind was strong and Yuki had a good pace, and just I tried to keep second position for overtaking the overtake for the victory in the last moment. Yeah, second victory of the Junior World Championship is amazing, and thanks to sponsor, team staff, family, all the people. Thank you.
And in Japanese as well, please.
まあレースは風が強くて結構そこに苦しんだ部分はあったんですけど、まあこうやって CV で2勝目上げれたんで、まだレース2があるんでそこにまた集中して頑張っていきたいと思います。
Ai Ogura there, taking the victory and hearing his thoughts after that race. Brilliant, brilliant stuff indeed from him. Absolutely fantastic. Apologies for the sound issues we seem to be having as well with that interview.